Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slapendipity, hobos of happy slappy town. My name is Devon, but you can call me Gibby, and I am here with
Eric, who you may call Eric.
Eric, who you may call Eric. I have a question for you, and that is, do you enjoy a good heist?
A heist, you say?
A heist, like stealing
Um,
stuff.
I enjoy the stories of them. There was one time where I tried performing my own heist. I guess I tried several in varying degrees. Like, my brother used to work the snack stand at the school, and I would try to get him to give me things for free. He wouldn't.
Mm.
But there was one time where I could have stolen a pack of Magic the Gathering cards. And it was just a random pack. And there was nobody in the shop because it was, connected to another shop. So, they just, walked in and out. So there was no one around. But the comic nerd shop had its own, entrance and exit. So I could just take the packs, walk out the door. No one would know because there was no one near the, where the two shops connected. And I was like, I could totally do this. And I reached for it. And as I was doing that, my stomach felt weird. And it, just all twisted and knotted. And I didn't feel good. And I was like, no, this is wrong. And I walked away. And I went into the other shop knowing that I was an okay civilian.
Interesting. Okay,
And I was like...
So...
10, no, maybe 10, 13?
I was gonna say, we didn't start playing Magic until we were 14 or 15. I think.
Yeah,
I remember. I remember when that happened. I remember you telling us shortly after.
Yeah,
that was forever ago. Okay, so question: would you have enjoyed having that pack of Magic cards?
Well, so I did the calculations as I was walking around the shop of if I stole it, I would have had to hide the wrap somewhere, because if I threw it in the trash, my parents would have been like, how did you get this? And I was like, okay, so if I do that, I can't put it in the trash, so then that means I would have to put it in my suitcase or something. But then I'm also not going to be able to play the game until, a week from now. So I guess I just have to... I would just look at them and go, yes. But then if I stole more packs, maybe I could build a deck, but then that would raise the question of what I would do. And I just kept getting more into the sauce of it all. And
into the sauce.
And I was just like, nah, not worth it.
Okay, let me rephrase. If you could right now just, have a pack of Magic cards in front of you, would that be a good thing? Would you enjoy that?
I don't care about Magic like that anymore, so no.
Oh, okay. How about at the time?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, I'm trying to get you to play along so I can come to a sweeping conclusion here.
No, I refuse.
Okay,
stories are fun though.
You would enjoy possessing the pack of Magic cards.
Maybe.
So, what is it about the heist that makes you not enjoy it? That made you choose to not take the Magic cards?
It made my stomach weird.
It made your stomach weird.
Yeah.
So, guilt?
Yeah, probably. If
okay.
we, look at about it, apply some hindsight.
So, I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of people, because I've had this conversation with people before, where they'll try to say that, guilt is a bad thing, and that, you're just repressed, and that you should have fought off that feeling and just done the thing that would have gotten you what you wanted, which in this case was a pack of Magic cards.
Uh-huh. I wouldn't agree.
Okay.
I mean, guilt isn't good or bad. It's just a feeling, just like any other, I feel like people have a similar relationship with anger, of anger is a bad emotion. It's no, you're just angry. It's you're having a strong reaction in a certain way to something that probably upset you in some capacity. Your feelings, what is it? It's your feelings inform you of, like, how you're reacting, but your decisions are, like, taking those feelings into consideration on how to move forward. Something like that. I forget the saying.
So you do listen to your guilty feelings.
Yeah.
Okay.
I listen to all of my feelings.
Okay, that's good, I guess. That's interesting.
They're nothing but informative.
Informative about yourself. Would you say that they're controlling, though?
They can be. There's I think the name is Big Magic, a book. I've been meaning to read it. Maybe I'll do that later at some point in time. But there's some person, the author of Big Magic, has a metaphor of, like, imagine you are in a car or like a minivan, and your body / brain is the driver's seat, and all of your emotions are with you in the minivan. And the point of the feelings isn't, like, for fear or scared was, like, her big one, I think. Or at least it's the one that I use. Where, like, you don't ever want fear or scaredness to, like, take over the driver's seat. You want it to, like, point something out on the road, and then you in the driver's seat see that, and then, correct your route with this new information. But you don't want to let fear in the driver's seat, like, take over and dictate what you will do and where you will go.
Interesting. I guess I've never really thought of feelings and emotions like that in, like, that sort of personified way. Like, I guess the movie Inside Out kind of does something similar.
Yeah.
I don't know. Very interesting. I know the reaction I get from a lot of people is whenever I try to explain my, like, thought process or feelings or, like, the way I come to decisions, they just tell me that, like, I'm dumb.
Oh.
Like literally, if I'm like, I don't think that, so I have this conversation with my brother, and he's like, why do you think it's morally wrong to drink alcohol? And I'm like, well, because if you drink alcohol, then you are impairing yourself. And if you impair yourself, then you're now in a state in which, should something come up in which it would be beneficial for you to not be impaired, you can no longer participate in that activity. Now, that activity could be something like, hey guys, let's have a walk in a straight line contest. Or it could be something as serious as, like, the guy at the table next to you is choking, and you can't perform the Heimlich maneuver because you're passed out drunk.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, okay, we live in a society. We live in a society where, like, everyone does things for everyone else, and you're part of this big old messy bubble soup of humans. And so to remove yourself from that equation just for your own benefit, right? Like, to be like, I am no longer going to be able to benefit others for nothing other than I want to enjoy this drink, I think is a moral failing.
Well, so may I then rebuttal?
Sure, but I my point is that he had a rebuttal to that, and he's like, well, no, because actually you're wrong. And I've never found any rebuttal to be satisfactory, because I've never heard anybody say something to counter what I just said. So, sure.
Did you want to? Did I cut you off? Did you want to say your brother's response, or are you content leaving it at that?
No, he just didn't have one.
Oh, okay.
He just said I was wrong.
I see. I would say, like, we do live in a society, actually. And, like, yeah, like, I don't know. I feel like saying supposed to is a bit of a stretch, but, like, there is a certain amount of, like, we live in a society together, we're all gonna perform by these exchange of rules and, like, help each other when we can. I think to be like I understand the logic of, like, oh, I am impairing myself and now I cannot help in this situation, but you aren't also owed to do that. You aren't expected to I don't know, fix a problem just because it happens, you know?
And why not?
Because that's not your responsibility.
And why not?
Because that's
Like,
not
but,
how
but,
we live.
but I think it is. And so for you to just say, no, it's not, is not a satisfactory answer.
Well, sure, I mean, but then that's just how you view the world. You view the world where everyone has to help everyone all the time.
Yeah.
And other people don't.
Yeah, and so that's my answer as to why I think drinking is wrong.
Right, sure, but that is, I mean,
so I think a more easy to understand version of this question would be something to the effect of the actual dilemma that my family had when we had to start taking care of my dog. So my dog is very, very old.
mm-hmm.
And if we were going to take her in, she would be moving into our house where we have 2 flights of stairs. And so it's like, okay, if we take her in, what if she can't do the stairs? And my response, because I think that it was, I could personally not see any sort of, I feel like it would have been morally wrong to not take her in. Mm-hmm. So my response was, we will take her in. And the pushback against that was, what about the stairs? And I said, she can do the stairs, and the day she can't do the stairs, I will carry her.
Mm-hmm.
And then my brother's response was, what if you can't carry her? What if you hurt your back? What if you hurt your legs? What if whatever happens and you can't carry her?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, and my response was, I will simply not get hurt.
I mean...
And so my point was, I will not take the risk to do literally anything that could result in me not being able to carry my dog up the stairs should my dog be unable to go up the stairs herself when we take her in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's sort of like I will not do thing X even if I want to, if it could possibly result in me being unable to do my duties to thing Y, because I am right now deciding that thing Y will be under my care, and in this case, I would be dog. And in the more general case, it would be like the guy next to me choking on his food.
Sure.
And me getting drunk at the Applebee's.
I think lol, I was imagining a fancy restaurant. I like how you were imagining Applebee's.
Oh, no, I was imagining a bar.
Yeah.
Signs on the wall.
Yeah, okay. I think there's a certain amount of, like, realistic expectations that have to be at play. Like, I just won't get in the position where I could not carry the dog, I would say is not realistic. Like, you're still young, so, like, you'll probably be fine. Knock, knock, wood.
Well, it's more that I think that doing something that could result in me hurting myself to the point where I could not carry the dog would be a bad thing to do, regardless of the outcome. If I'm like, hey guys, look, I'm going to try to do a backflip. Me attempting to do the backflip is wrong because should I hurt myself, I would not be able to take care of my dog.
But I think there's a certain amount of, like, what are you living your life for, though, then?
The dog.
Because, I mean, sure. But then you have to do, like, a checks and balance systems of, like, well, I would be really happy to do this thing, but I can't/won't do it because it would affect this other thing that I'm weighing against it. And I think that would lead to a system where, like, you start resenting the thing, whatever it is. In this case, a dog, per se. I don't think that'll happen for you with this dog because you love this dog. Yes. But, like, I mean, this is how, like, oh, should I get divorced? I'm in an unhappy marriage. Well, no, because then you would make your wife sad or your husband sad. And it's like, yeah, but you're in an unhappy marriage.
Well, I mean, that's a little complicated. Depends on, like, what you mean by unhappy marriage. But no, in this case, it's like, if you boil it down to, like, hey, your options are do this thing that makes you happy at the expense of your dog, or don't do the thing that makes you happy. Like, that's not even a question for me.
I think there's a certain amount of, like, that's too black and white, though. Like, you can have, and everyone should drink responsibly and know their own limits. Like, you could have a beer and not be impaired to take care of your dog.
Yes, in the conversation that I was having, it was specifically drinking to the point of impairment.
Right.
Whatever that happened to be for any given individual.
Yeah.
So, like, I had an instance where, oh, my car broke down the side of the road. I needed, like, a jump, or I'm out of gas or whatever. Call up, I'll just make someone up. I'll be like, oh, my God, Lindsay, can you help me? My car broke down. And Lindsay's like, sorry, I can't. I've been drinking a lot tonight. Right. Well, screw you, Lindsay.
But that's not, like, her fault. I mean...
is it? Isn't it?
She should not... You should not have to rely on her to bail you out.
Well, what's more likely to happen? A car breaking down through no fault of its owners in our world where we have cars, or somebody mysteriously getting drunk for someone that's not their own fault. Like, it's not like they had a fever and they're like, oh my God, I'm sick, I can't go. I went to, the park today and it was cold and I accidentally got a cold and a fever and now I'm sick. This is something that was entirely within their own ability to control, that they did only for their own pleasure.
Right, but you went to wherever you went to for the pleasure of you going to the place. Your car broke down, and now you're relying on someone else to fix it for you instead of, like, calling AAA or whatever. It'd be a little different if you were like, hey, Lindsay, I'm going out tonight. You're my emergency phone number if, like, I get in trouble. If she still drinks then, like, and to the point that she can't come help you, then you had this promise that was broken, and I could see more of an argument. But just to be like, hello, random friend, can you come help me out of a jam? Sorry, I'm drunk because I had a tough time at work and I wanted to unwind and no one expected anything of me tonight. And you go, well, that's selfish of you. I think is a little...
Nope. That's the correct thing for me to think in that instance. Yep.
No.
So okay, so you're watching a movie and someone on a plane starts having like a heart attack or something, and the pilot's like, "Is there a doctor on board?"
Right.
Okay, what if that doctor was on board and he was a heart attack doctor and he could have done something, but he drank a bunch before the plane took off and now he can't help and the man dies?
I mean,
should the doctor have just not done that?
Should he have just not done that? Should
the doctor have not drunk? Yeah.
Well, there's already scenarios where sober doctors won't step up, because if the person dies, they can be liable.
Yes, that's a problem with our legal system. I'm talking morally, not litigiously.
Sure, I'm just pointing out it's already a gray area. But that's also going from one specific extreme to a more...
Okay, well, that's...
from a general take to a specific.
If we're talking philosophies or principles or whatever, there is no such thing as an extreme. Like, if you're talking a principle or philosophy, it must apply in 100% of cases. Otherwise, it's not a philosophy or a principle.
We're talking morally. I don't know if that counts.
It's the same thing.
I never took philosophy classes, okay?
The point is, if you're a doctor, in that scenario, do you think that the doctor shouldn't have been drinking?
I don't. It's too great for that.
Do you think it's reasonable that the doctor will feel bad about the circumstance after the fact?
I mean, maybe.
I
think. I mean, like, we do have a certain amount of, like, if this doctor is wasted on a plane, then, and he's not controlling himself, that is, like, public indecency, or, like,
I would say impaired to the point where they can't give medical advice or perform, a life-saving operation. Not operation, like, with, like, a scalpel, I mean, like, a maneuver or something.
Sure. Oh gosh, what is it? Not CPR. Is it no, yeah.
Heimlich maneuver or something.
I'm bad.
Cough up that heart.
It is unfortunate that random consequences can happen to anyone, anywhere, anytime at all. I don't think that means everyone else has to be prepared for those. Which is how I'm taking what you're saying. That no one can do anything that would inhibit them in any capacity, because what if you're needed for anything ever?
Yes,
Why are
the
you
big
watching a sad movie and crying, and now you're need to sleep the night off because you're reminded of whatever terrible instance that happened in your life? You simply shouldn't do that because I have a flat tire.
Well, it is not that you shouldn't have watched the movie, it's that you should have dealt with your trauma so that a movie didn't trigger you to the point where you had to go and sleep off the rest of the night just from a film. Anyway, the point is more that the greatest evil in the world is nature. Is Mother Nature. It's a thing that will kill. It's the thing that will kill all of us. It is viruses. It is extreme weather. It is animals. It is temperature.
Weird nature.
I mean, more than like.
Sure, natural disasters and the plague and whatever, but it's not like humanity is some great thing that existed outside of the context of nature.
I just mean more. We can. If someone comes up and mugs you and you get stabbed or shot to like because they want your money, that's different than the uncaring wildfires firing through California in January of 2025.
Yeah, those are different.
And so I think that the what we are fighting against as individuals and as a species is nature. And that as a species together, we can fight nature together.
To what end? Also, I don't think you should fight nature.
No, again, nature is the greatest evil there is.
Nature isn't evil, though. Nature simply is.
Nature's uncaring. Which is my point. Which is, humans should act caring. Nature's uncaring.
But nature's not like caring or nature's just a thing. That's like saying time is uncaring because we only go forward in it. It's just what it is. You're ascribing human qualities to inhuman things.
Well, is a rock caring or uncaring?
It's a rock. It's neither.
No, it's uncaring.
No, it's neither. It's not applicable.
It's a caring?
No, it's not even that.
Well,
rock does not get the label of caring or uncaring or any of that because it is a rock. It cannot.
We can invent the word a caring in that circumstance, incapable of. But no, I think it comes down to, again, humans are capable of planning, we are caring, and capable of working together. And the thing we are fighting, which is nature, is uncaring and chaotic, I would say, as opposed to our ability to organize, and destructive.
I would fully disagree with you.
A human having a heart attack, and we other humans can save them, but we don't because of choices we've made. We are letting down our humans, other humans, and that is why it is wrong.
I mean, dying is not inherently bad.
Having a heart attack on an airplane is bad. I'm not talking about the concept of death versus immortality. I'm talking about a preventable.
Is it preventable?
We can do the Heimlich maneuver. I don't know why I keep saying heart attack. Let's say something a little less extreme. Choking.
There are. I mean, well, no, hang on. There's so much. I think. Right, you said humans are caring, planning, and did you say a third thing?
I would say maybe organized, but that's kind of just where caring and planning meet.
Sure.
Caring and planning meet at organized.
I would disagree. I think I don't think that's an inherent truth to all humans. I don't know what I would think about it. I don't think all humans are inherently good or inherently bad. But, like, to just be like, all humans are caring and planning, like, I don't think so. And as a species, I suppose you can make the argument, we've come a long way from where we were, but how much of that was also just accidental and coincidences, and we just slipped our way into where we are?
I'm
I
going to go with
think...
absolutely 0.
Oh, so
I think there's
it
an
was
absolute
just
0% chance that we are where we are through coincidence and accidentally slipping.
not entirely, but it's not like we were just like, you know what? Let's I don't know.
So
Like
I
we
read
could,
something. I read something a few years ago. I don't remember if it was
I'm
like a Twitter post or a Tumblr post or something, but it was something to the effect of like, "Wow, it sure is lucky that back in the day they used to make like silverware out of real silver because silver repels germs. Think about how many people would have gotten sick if they didn't use silver to make forks and spoons out of."
okay.
And I'm just like, "Are you an idiot?" Like
Are
just
you
because we
trying to tell me silver doesn't?
No, just because we didn't know that germs existed doesn't mean that the people who chose to use silver as the metal to make their eating utensils out of didn't understand that silver didn't didn't bring disease to the people the way that other metals did. Like, we didn't just choose to do it because it was silly. We did it because it worked. We didn't know how it worked. We didn't know why it worked. We didn't have the scientific method. But, like, we
Sure.
didn't just do things.
I
They
think
worked,
we
and that's why we
did.
did them. No.
I think it was both. I think it would be like overestimating humans to be like every single thing we did, even if we didn't know it, there was an exact reason as to why we did it. That, like, no, humans are silly and things happen and mistakes happen and it just works out.
Well, the silly mistakes and things we did, obviously led to a big loss of lives. Like, think about the outcomes of, like, the Cultural Revolution in China. They were like, oh my god, the birds are eating all of the plants. So what we're going to do in order to make more plants is kill all the birds. So everyone in China, if you see birds, kill them because they're eating our plants and we need the plants for ourselves. Right? And this was a thought, right? There's logic behind that. That makes sense, right?
Sure.
Right, and that was the worst mistake in human history, and it led to 60 million people dying because killing the birds meant the birds weren't there to eat the bugs, and the bugs killed every single plant instead of the tiny little fruits that the birds may have taken. And it was the biggest loss of life in human history. Because someone thought, like, oh, I have a smart idea, and then they just did it. I think it was something similar happened with, like, the invention of mercury. Someone was like, this is a cool thing, and then it was not good.
Well, I think there was a similar thing with, like, Australia. I mean, not on that scale or the whatever, but, like, they had a lot of bullflies, so they were like, let's import a bunch of bullfrogs to deal with them. And the bullfrogs didn't care. Like, they didn't actually eat bullflies, and they're just named bull. And so now there's a massive bullfrog problem in Australia, and you get, like, paid money to kill frogs or something.
Yeah, there was also, this is kind of not where I was going with this whole conversation. There was this example of, I'm going to guess it was like India or something, where they had a big snake problem. And they said, okay, we're going to put a bounty on snakes. For every snake head that you bring us, we'll pay you. And you know what happened?
They killed snakes?
They started breeding snakes so that they would have more snake heads to bring the government to get paid, and there ended up being more snakes.
That's a hustle.
Yeah. So it's like whenever there's big, let's say top-down decision making to like let's face this problem head on. It could have good intentions, but it doesn't go the way that they're planning for factors that they couldn't control or understand, or we would now think better of. Anyway, the point is that even for like big mistakes, there was still the intention of the decision that was being made leading to something better. We didn't just slip and accidentally create society. We guess and checked a bunch of times, and sometimes we were wrong, and tens of millions of people died, and sometimes we were right, and that's how we got to where we are. Because humans are planning and caring.
But I mean, sure, they still planned, but they planned wrong.
Yeah,
and
that's
I would
fine.
say but that part of that planning wrong is slipping into new things, and that's how you get goofs and stuff, like we've just described.
Yeah, but you're
Also,
still planning. science. We're doing science.
Nature is not evil and uncaring. Nature simply is. It's not good or bad. The cycle of life and death is just how the world works. And it's not uncaring because, again, rocks, caring. It's just it's kind of like a law of the universe. We kill things so they can decompose and be the foundation for new things.
Okay, Mufasa.
Thank you.
I think my overall point, I can't believe we strayed this far from whatever we started talking about. But, like, my overall point was... we started talking... Because I was talking about, like, alcohol or whatever. My point was that, like, I think that we exist, we stand on the shoulders of giants, right? Like, that's a saying.
Sure, yeah.
We exist due to the sacrifices, hardships, and struggles of everyone who's come before us and everyone else who's currently alive.
Uh-huh.
And I think that the day may come when you are called to pay that back. And if your answer is, sorry, I would rather serve myself, that is the definition of immoral.
I'm still not there. I don't fully disagree. Like, there is a certain amount of, like, civility and compassion than, like, stuff that we can apply, but also you're just born into the world and here you are. I don't think it's entirely fair to just exist and then now you gotta pay up on some favor because of all the hard work that people you didn't know or care about are asking things of you. Not that you shouldn't help others, but I think there's a certain amount that you should lead the life that you want to.
Why do you get to lead the life that you want to? You just kind of said, like, oh, you were just born one day. It's like, yes, your parents made you one day. So right. why are you saying that you get to lead the life you want to and ignore, the society around you and all the people who've come before, including in this case your own parents?
I'm not saying
I have the exact opposite opinion. I think you just were born one day. You owe literally every second of your life and every ounce of energy to the people who brought you into the world. Now, that could literally be your parents, or it could metaphorically be the world around you and society and history and etc. and other people. I think you could never repay the world enough for you being born.
But see, you know what that to me sounds like is, why are you not volunteering every single second? You shouldn't want money because money is bad, and that's not helping people, that's helping yourself. And if you're not doing everything of all of your time and energy for anyone else outside of yourself, then you are a bad person, which I would just disagree with.
Well, so I completely agree with that, but I think that we would frame it differently. First of all, you said, oh, money bad. There's nothing... Money's not bad. Money is a signifier of effort. But
no, money is a tool that we use to exist in a society effort on the scale that we do.
Money is a signifier of effort. So there's a... It's the difference between... I'm going to use the word maximal, which basically means, like, most possible given the... given the limitations, right? So if I'm like, Eric, I need 100% of your time put into this, into this podcast. Now, am I saying, Eric, I need you to spend 24 of the next 24 hours? Or am I saying, Eric, I need you to spend 16 of the next 24 hours because we're already assumed that 8 of those hours you'll be asleep?
The 24 hours one.
See, what I would mean if I said that was 16.
I mean, yeah, that's...
We already know you're going to sleep. We already know you're going to eat. We already know you're going to have to go to the bathroom. We already know you're going to do this. And then I think if you kind of expand this out and make it even more general, it's like, well, a typical workday is like 8 hours, and obviously I expect you to, like, socialize with other people and, like, do all this stuff and, like, read books and, do stuff for yourself. So what I really mean is tomorrow, your 7 to 8 hour work day, I expect you to spend only on the podcast. Because that's what we need right now, chop chop. So when I say you owe everything, all your time, all your energy, that's what I mean.
I think that is a cop-out. Because if you owe everyone everything, and we're talking about, you know, I forget what you said earlier, but, like, it has to apply to every situation, right? It can't just be specific. Then it is your duty to make the world a better place as much as possible, anytime you can.
Correct.
Therefore, you should never do anything for yourself, because that's not doing things for others.
Well, Eric,
it is a self-destructive lifestyle in the benefit of anyone else.
But you know why it's not? It's because you got to affix your own oxygen mask before helping the person next to you.
Well, why is that? You should just work until you're dead. Make the world better for me to live in until you can't live in it anymore.
But that's not what I'm saying. That's the point I'm trying to get across. I'm saying you put on your own oxygen mask and then help the person next to you, as opposed to someone who would say you put on your own oxygen mask and don't help the person next to you. But whenever I say that, I feel like people's responses are like, well, but if you're helping them with theirs, what if you just but you're not gonna put yours on? And I'm like, you put yours on first, and then you use theirs. And they're like, no, too complicated. Just only do yours. Don't even worry about them. Like that's what it feels like whenever I have this conversation with people. Is I'm laying out my terms very plainly and specifically, and then other people either come to basically what you just said, where it's like, oh, well, so you're just saying to be a wage slave, to just go out and work for other people all the time and not enjoy life. I'm like, no, because if you spend time enjoying life and unwinding and socializing, then you'll recharge your batteries enough to then go and help more people. And they'll be like, oh, well, why don't you just go build houses for the poor? Why are you working to accumulate money? It's like, well, if I accumulate money, then I can use that money and I can re-spend it back into the economy to buy things so that other people's labor can be rewarded with the money that I'm giving them, and thus creating even more wealth between us. Right? Like, it all works together in a big system. I just think, and I do think that people do live that way. I just think that they don't understand why the system is set up that way. Like, you shouldn't feel, like, guilty or greedy or whatever about, like, spending money. Because when you spend money, it doesn't disappear. It goes to the people whose labor you're buying. That's a good thing, actually.
Sure. I think part of the thing when you have this argument is there's either an assumption or, I don't know, something happens where you talk about in the system that we already exist in, and the recipient that you're talking to then takes that to the extreme, as we do, and goes, well, the system is broken, so you should just have a better system or not exist in that system, or do what you can so that, like, the help you do is direct and immediate and you can be satisfied, you know, like building homes for the homeless or whatever the example is, because that way you can see the immediate results of your effect, and while everyone else is participating in the system that we have, which we all admit is, like, flawed at least, then you can have a certain amount of, like, gloating that, like, you're a better good person.
But, like, none of the things you just said were things that are even, like, in my opinion, even on the same topic of the conversation we're having. Like, first of all, I disagree that we exist within any sort of system. We
live in a society.
Yes, but okay, so what is that society? When me and you are together, us two, we are a relationship that is a culture. When we're talking about the town that we live in, Happy Slappy Town, you know, that is a culture that, you know, works in a certain way. When we're talking about you know, the state of New Jersey, which, you know, I think when you're talking about any sort of economic system, I think you always have to talk about, like, the entity that collects taxes from you and thus gives you benefits from you paying those taxes. So, like, the state of New Jersey, we pay taxes to it so that it will build our roads, and then we use those roads, right? So, like, that is one level of analysis that we can look at this, you know, economy from. And then you can look at it from, you know, the level of analysis of the entire United States of America. And you can look at it from the level of analysis of every country that is in NATO. And you can look at it from the level of analysis of the entire planet. Right? And if you look at, like, those different things, like me and you, our friend group, our town, the people in New Jersey, the people in the country, the people in NATO, the people in the world, none of those systems operate the same way. You can't just rubber stamp it and be like, okay, this one is a capitalist, and this one is, this one's corporatist, and this one's communist, and this one's... It's like, it doesn't work that way. Like, all value and effort is different for everyone and everything, and the way that we would value something in a different, like right now, if you're like, Devon, would you spend $7 on a bottle of water? I would say, no, you're crazy. 10 minutes ago, if you had said, Devon, would you spend $7 on a bottle of water? I may have thought it, because I was cold. When I say 10 minutes ago, I mean 10 minutes before the podcast started recording. I would have said yes, because I'm real thirsty, and I'm outside in the cold walking my dog. I would part with $7 for a bottle of water. So my answer to the question of, would you pay $7 for a bottle of water, is different based on something as small as 10 minutes of my time.
Yeah. I guess. I'm... Where did you think this was going to go?
I thought you were not going to tell the story of you stealing the magic card pack, and I thought you were going to say that you like heists. And then I was going to ask you... I was going to tell you a story about a conversation I had with someone where they're like, Devon, what would it take you to violate this principle you have, like cursing? And I'd be like, well, I can see myself cursing in the future. If they're like, curse right now, I'd say no. And they'd be like, well, could you ever see yourself cursing? And I'm like, well, if I have kids one day and I'm reading them a story at story time in bed and there's a foul language in the book, I'd probably stop and ask myself and say, is right now the only appropriate time ever to say a swear word? Yes, it is. And so I would say it. And then the conversation, the person's like, oh, well, could you ever see yourself, doing some drugs? And I'd be like, well, no, because I don't believe in drugs, because I think that impaired whatever. And they'd be like, okay, but could you ever see a scenario in which you could be basically convinced that, like, that's not the case? Like, you're not a doctor, so you don't know how to save someone with a Heimlich. And you're, let's say, theoretically, you and Eric are in Japan. So let's say that there's some sort of emergency. You know so little about what's going on, and you don't even speak the language, that you physically could not actually help and would probably just get in the way. And literally, you being slightly tipsy could not benefit any given problem at all. And you're also, like, halfway around the world from anyone that you know. And so, like, if your mother called you up and there's a problem, you can't do anything because you're in Japan anyway. So, like, could you see yourself, like, doing the drugs over there? Obviously, I would not. But I'm like, yes, I think that in a circumstance like that, I would understand why the risk is so low that would nullify my argument, etc. And I was going to ask you what you think the one thing I would say no to is, the one principle I would not violate in any circumstance. But before getting to that point, I thought you were going to say something like, oh, come on, Gibby, you're only feeling guilty because that's a silly emotion. And then I would have been like, oh, well, earlier you said that you liked heists, so would you steal candy from a baby? And then I would have totally gotten you.
Oh. Who would steal candy from a baby?
Someone who likes candy and heists.
But I wouldn't be in the situation where I'd be like, I must have this candy. I will steal it from a baby. As opposed to not wanting candy, or being able to wait for the candy, or buying my own candy.
But the thing with buying your own is that you then don't get the benefit of the enjoyment of the heist. So if you enjoy stealing and you enjoy candy, and you see a baby with candy, why wouldn't you steal the candy from the baby?
I see.
Because of guilt.
Yeah, I guess so.
So yeah, that's where this conversation was supposed to go. We got a little derailed.
We were supposed to go.
That's where I was trying to trick you to go to, and then you would have been like, oh my god, at the beginning of the episode when you brought up heist, was it just to get to this point? And I would have said yes.
Nah. I'm too
I was going to try to casually bring in casually bring in that you like, was it Milk Duds?
I hate Milk Duds.
What's those candies that you like that everyone else hates? Almond
I
Joy,
don't-
something like that?
Almond Joy, Ferrero Rocher.
Yeah, Almond Joys, that's it.
Almond Joys are great.
I was going to casually bring up that you like Almond Joys, and then, mix all these things together for a big gotcha at the end. But you had to go along and say that you felt guilty about almost stealing something one time. So,
Yeah.
kind of ruined my plan. Spoiled my plans.
You know.
You feel guilty about that?
No. Because you were trying to pull a big gotcha on me.
I was. That's the thrill of the heist.
Is that why you do the gotchas? Is that why you're so obsessed with them? You like the thrill of the heist? The thrill of pulling it over?
Yes, the thrill of pulling one over? The thrill of 40 winks? Are you kidding me?
Oh. But what does it get you?
Satisfaction.
Is that satisfaction worth it, though? You
Yes.
have a reputation in my mind of how you are and act.
Mm-hmm. I've been like this since before we met, Eric.
Momentary satisfaction? Also, wait a minute. I'm so sorry. You would curse to read to your children?
If I'm sitting down,
the opposite.
If I'm sitting down with my kids and I am having father-children reading time and I'm reading Harry Potter and there are curse words in the book, that is the only... I would read the words as written and not feel bad about it.
What curse words in Harry Potter? What?
There's a lot of curse words in Harry Potter. They curse all the time.
What do you mean? What do you... Why? Because I never read it. Do you mean a curse word like crap? Because that's not a curse word.
No, they say the H word. They say the D word a lot.
Wait. What's the H word?
They say all of the curse words up until the S word.
What? What's the G curse word?
Start saying some curses. And I don't mean like spells. They say that all the time.
Do they really?
Yeah.
What? Bastard?
They don't say that, but it's just because it doesn't come up in context.
Oh. What's... I'm not going to say C on here. God. Yeah.
No. That's worse.
Dick?
No,
I guess...
but...
What's the other D? Oh, damn.
Yeah, they say that all the time.
What's the E curse word?
There isn't an E curse word. What are you
talking about? Well, you said up until S, and I was like,
no.
What do you
up until the S word? Like if you made a tier of like how bad curse words were, right? Like the top in America. Let's take out some slurs. The top would be the C word, and then right below that would be the F word, and I think right below that would be the S word, and then all the other ones.
No way. Shit's not number 3 curse word.
I think that's easily number 3.
No, it's like number 15. What? It's...
Dude, you couldn't say that on TV until like 10 years ago.
Yeah, but that... You couldn't say fuck on TV 10 years ago.
You still can.
Well, you still can, for sure.
Yeah, you can't say the C word or the F word, and up until a few years ago, you couldn't say the S word.
But surely you couldn't say either of the B's.
Oh, yes, you can.
What?
All the time.
When?
Dude, you ever watch The Office? Oh my god. Parks and Rec? They use that word all the time.
Which one?
The B word.
Which one?
The female one. Every PG-13 show I ever watched, Bones, The Office, B words all over the place.
No way.
Oh yeah, and they say it in Harry Potter.
Is this what I get for consuming Japanese media instead of American?
This is what you get for, like, going on Tumblr and people there are like, the B word sexist, actually?
No. I would say the B word all the time, and whenever my parents got mad at me, I would go, what? That's our dog. That's what she is. And they would go, you know why I'm mad at you.
In the third Harry Potter book, they use the word in reference to a dog, but it's also... Okay, so it's a very interesting usage. So like when you're a kid, obviously this didn't apply to either of us, I think, but there's like an episode of The Simpsons where Bart is like, okay, so I've determined we're allowed to say these swear words because I found them in the Bible.
Oh, sure.
Which is kind of like what you just said. And so it
Yeah.
was like, oh, we're allowed to use these swear words because they're in Harry Potter.
You can say the word damn because it's like a beaver dam.
Well, that's different. I mean,
Well,
like, you can actually use the word. So
sure.
in the third Harry Potter book, they're talking to Harry's aunt, who
Okay.
breeds dogs.
Hmm.
And so, she uses the B word in reference to a dog. But in the context of the conversation, she's saying, that, sometimes, you shouldn't carry on a family lineage. Sometimes, the blood is bad. If there's something wrong, just like your sister, Petunia, if there's something wrong with the B word, then there's something wrong with the pup. And she's saying that in reference to, Lily was bad. That's why Harry is bad. And so she is kind of calling a woman the B word, even though she is literally using the metaphor of a dog. So it's like, whoa, wait, does that count?
I see. I was kind of imagining, like, book number 1, Harry's like, fuck this bitch, or something. And I was gonna be like, Harry Potter is different.
So the I'd say the most intense usage of any curse word is when Molly Weasley is fighting off spoilers for Harry Potter, I guess. So Bellatrix just shot an Avada Kedavra at Ginny.
Okay.
And so almost kills Ginny. And so Molly goes, "Not my daughter, you B word," and then just blows her up.
That's pretty tame.
That's like the only time that like a hero just like outright kills someone, and because she's pissed because her daughter almost died. And that's I'd say the most strong use of language in the series, but like it's in the context of this person just tried to murder a child.
That's such a weird scenario in which you would curse. Like, so many people would be the opposite. Like, I could never curse in front of my children. They need to learn and know better. And
you're going back to my thing.
Bring it. Yeah. I'm just because it's such an interesting thought process. Like, I don't like. So many parents are like, I need to stop cursing. I need my mouth clean so my child doesn't pick up on it. And you're like, nah.
Well, yeah. If I'm
in a certain context,
in the context of I'm reading a piece of literature, I'm reading a book for the benefit of my children. If I would allow them to read it on their own, why wouldn't it be okay for them to hear their father reading it out loud?
I guess, but then it's like, sure, there's hearing their father read it out loud, but you have your own thing that you don't want to say it.
But like my morals, like what kind of principle would it be if I'm like, it would be wrong for me to say a bad word, even if doing so would benefit my child? Like, that would make absolutely no sense.
Does it benefit them?
Does it not? Bedtime, story time?
Well, no, you could find books without curse words in it.
What if I want to specifically read them Harry Potter?
Well, then you're compromising your own morals and values for, what? So they can be a Harry Potter adult?
Child, at the very least.
So, yeah, I would, in that, if that's the case, I would say that's compromising.
I'm saying it wouldn't compromise. But, let's go back to, I told the story a long time ago on the podcast, which is really funny. Someone mentioned this in the comments on one of my videos, and I'm like, I barely remember telling that story, and also that means you listen to the podcast, which is very odd. Someone mentioned in the comments on my YouTube channel, they're like, oh yeah, Gibby doesn't curse when he had to say the H word in his FNAF video. He said helicopter.
Yes, and it was a very roundabout helicopter.
Yeah, and I'm just like, first of all, I didn't know that more people watch this podcast. Now I know of 2 people who watch it, so that's cool. The 2 people who write in. Also, I think the person who left that comment was also the person who has now written in, so that's fine. I understand. I get it now. But I'm reading that. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Anyway, the point is that when I was making that part of the video, and I asked myself, I'm like, well, it goes against my principles to, like, say the word here, so, like, I shouldn't. But at the same time, if I could inspire the kind of, like, feeling that I got upon appreciating that scene in the game, of hearing this, like, evil person's tortured screams, and like the feeling that I got, if the only way that I could impart that onto the viewer of my video is by specifically saying the line, even as it's depicted in an 8-bit video game, the H word is real. I'm like, would it be causing more harm? What's the better outcome here? I get to say that I've never said the H word, or I missed the opportunity to really punch home the moral of the story to the 5 million people who've watched my video. Which one's more important?
I think helicopter is like
is a happy medium.
I'd say it's like a sad medium. Like, you didn't commit to either.
I committed to, because like you kind of said, it's like I may as well have said it. Like 5 million people heard me say it. I said the word. The word was said. It's just I know that I didn't say it. But you just said you may as well have said it. I think that it's better that I said that and that it caused whatever feeling it caused in people than it would have been had I not said the word. Now, in that scenario, because of the magic of editing, I was able to not actually have to say it. When I'm reading a book to my child, I will actually have to say it. And so I think in that case, in that scenario, it would be fine.
What age are you imagining these children? Just my own.
6. Probably 6.
6?!
I was bringing my Harry Potter books to school to read them when I was 6.
That's second grade. That might be first grade for some people.
I was thinking second grade. I was bringing my copies of Chamber of Secrets and Prisoner of Azkaban to read when I was 6.
What? Bro, I was getting Bible stories until I was like 8.
The first movie came out when we were 5.
But that doesn't mean it's acceptable for 5-year-olds.
No, but I mean, I would guess that most of our friends probably watched the first movie in theaters.
Oh.
I did. I know George did. No, so I watched the first... My brother was already reading them, and my mother loved them. My mother was, like, reading them with my brother. First movie came out. I saw the movie. It scared me. But, like...
Oh, well,
Pottermania... It scared me because there was a scary troll man.
And it still scared you.
Pottermania took over, and so now it's, like, everywhere. And so that's when I started getting into it. So before the second movie came out, I then read all the books. I read the first 4 books between the first and the second movie coming out.
And you were like 9.
I was 5.
You were 5. You read the 4th book when you were 5?
I read the first 4 books between November 2001 and November 2002.
This explains so much.
The 5th book hadn't come out yet.
Okay, so I haven't read the book,
from first
so I can't
grade to second grade.
I don't think I would let them, if I had hypothetical children and they were 5 and they were like, we want to read the 4th book of Harry Potter, I'd be like, no! How did you read the first 3?
Because you think that one's darker? I mean, in the movies,
I think I wouldn't have
it's the first one that's
read.
PG-13, so it's a little darker, but like...
It's a little... there's some death in it. There's death in all of them, I guess.
Yes. Yeah.
But no, I guess in my brain, because I don't plan on having kids, I just defaulted to Harry is 10/11 when the book starts. Therefore, the reader should read the book at 10/11. And then you can just scale it up.
Kids typically like reading a little older than they actually are.
I don't know about that, man. I was pretty content with some... Really?
When I was 12... So, okay, I'll get to like child psychology in a second. So like I had a cousin who was reading the first book and watching the first movie. This was like 6 or 7 years ago, so he would have been 7 maybe? So I think he was 7 or 8, and he was starting the series, which I think is a little more normal. Obviously, at the point, back then, I had an older brother, and it was the middle of Potter mania, and so it was a little more common to just, like, introduce it to kids when they were younger. But yeah, no, so I was reading them between 1st and 2nd grade. But no, I think child psychology is most of the time, once you hit age 10 or so, the last thing, and this is very important to kid development actually, is they don't want to do anything that could be seen as being a kid. They want to appear older.
Yeah.
And so part of that is a rejection of media that is like from the perspective of a kid. I think most 12-year-olds want to read about 16-year-olds.
Yeah.
And so what you got to do is you got to make material about 16-year-olds but meant for 12-year-olds.
I think one of the things you said Harry Potter came out when we were 6 or whatever.
The first movie came out in 2001, yeah.
When did... yeah, so my brother is older than me, and he was the only one that read it. We went to a midnight release for one of the books, and I was like, why are we here? This is dumb. But so he, I think, was in 5th grade when he started reading them because he got caught up in the Pottermania.
Yeah.
So I guess that's also... Not that he was... I don't know. However old you are when you're in 5th grade.
11.
Yeah. So, and I think he read the first book around then, roughly.
Now, the interesting thing about Harry Potter is that even though the books are really, really long, they're still considered middle grade. So, like, they are meant for ages 9 to 13. People will mistakenly call them young adult, but they are middle grade.
No, not even the 7th book. Surely that's not.
Why? Because Mrs. Weasley says the B word?
I don't know what happens in the 7th book. I just am going off my knowledge of the movies. Like,
I mean, people die. I don't know.
People die. They drop like flies. There's a war. There's a intense... I don't know.
How old should you be to read The Hobbit?
I don't know.
How old should you be to read Goosebumps?
I didn't read.
How old should you... Okay, these Five Nights at Freddy's novels. So, okay, very interesting. The little, I'm going to say Goosebumps FNAF novels that I'm talking about on my channel. One of my theories is that the stories are in-universe books. So, if you're in the game Five Nights at Freddy's, if you're a character in the game, you can read the book. You can go and read the book because they're being published by the company that owns the license to Fazbear. And they're meant to like, ooh, you think our characters are spooky? Here's some books we can sell you. Ooh. And someone left a comment and is like, these books are so scary that like the kids who Freddy's would want to attract would be too young for them. And I'm like, well, how old should the people be that read the books? And he's like, older than that. I'm like, well, the front of the book said it's meant for 9 to 13-year-olds. So I guess in universe, it would also be for 9 to 13-year-olds. And they're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
I guess. I haven't had to pay attention to any of that stuff, and I didn't as a child.
Interesting.
So I just have this gap. I read Artemis Fowl.
Yep. I read those.
The Guardians of Ga'Hoole, and I think that's about it.
Did you actually read the Artemis Fowl books? Like, how old were you when you read those?
I read the first 2 or 3 when I was around 10, I guess. Okay. Then I dropped it because I just wasn't paying attention to media. Like, I didn't know what, like, release cycles or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think when I was, like, 15 or something, there was a new Artemis Fowl book, and I was like, hot damn, I remember this. What? Let me get this. Let me see what's going on. And I think I read, like, a page or 2, and I was like, I clearly missed volumes. Or not volumes, but, books. And I'm just going to put this away.
Yeah, I think when I read them, the first 4 had come out. So that we must have been like 8 or 9.
Something.
Because I read the first 4, and then when the 5th one came out, it was like a big deal. But then like George, who also read them, didn't care about the new one and like wasn't keeping up. And then the 6th one came out. And the 6th one's coming out, and he didn't care.
Yeah.
If you tried to look at them again when you were like 15, that would have been well after you became friends with me and George. Because me and George can speak the language in the book, Gnomish. Yeah. So, like, I don't know, it just never came up in conversation.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, Eric, you've read those books? Because I can sight read Gnomish.
Yeah, no, it just never came up.
Huh.
And you guys would talk in that language, and I would be like, I guess they made up their own language, whatever. Because it had been so long since I read Artemis Fowl, I just forgot.
When at the movie theater that we used to work at, one year I was in charge of Secret Santa, and so I had to keep a master list. I had to know who everyone had to make sure that no one had themselves, and there were no duplicates, whatever. I bit the bullet, and I knew who everyone had.
Right.
So I had to physically keep a list. But if I physically kept a list, then other people could see it. Like even if I kept it in the office, the other managers can see it. So I needed to write it in code. And so the code I wrote it in was the Gnomish language from Artemis Fowl. And so I had people like our old kitchen manager and one of our old other manager friends who would look at it and be like, I'm going to decode this. And they'd stare at it and they'd be like, I don't know. I can't figure it out. And I'd be like, I can just read this.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's part of the fun of, reading. Reading's good.
Oh, sure. Reading is good. You
read your books.
Read your books, or get a demo disc from the PS2 and then never beat any of the levels on it because you don't understand how it works and it's just a random level from a video game. And you're like, what?
Do you have experience?
Yeah, that's what I did instead of read.
Oh, you just keep playing a PS2 demo disc?
Yeah. Of like, oh, here's the Emperor's New Groove video game, and here's a demo disc with that one level from that video game on this disc, and you can replay it. And I didn't understand how to play it. And so I would just bash my head against it, metaphorically speaking, for like days.
That's
weeks,
so
maybe. Or like, here's Tekken 3 on the demo disc. You get the option of 2 characters. And I was like, oh cool, a fighting game. And I would just play that for days.
So I had, I guess it was like a universal experience because they would just mail out PS2 demo discs to people.
I think so.
But yeah, no, I got those. And I remember I had a demo that had the Incredibles game. And I thought that game had the greatest graphics ever because it looked like the movie. And back then, we could barely afford PS2 games. I think I told the story a few episodes ago around Christmas where I'm like, we got the PS2 one year because we were very poor. And so like we didn't really have PS2 games. So I was still playing like Spyro and stuff on the PS2. Still playing PS1 games on it. And I saw the Incredibles game and I'm like, this is the best the graphics could get. This looks just like the movie. And that's my experience with the PS2 demo disc. I also had a game I would later find out was Ratchet and Clank, but it was just a multiplayer mode that me and my brother played a lot. I sent you a message in our Discord.
Yeah, it's at Gnomish, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it says, hi, Eric.
Okay. Hi, Devon.
Well, that was an episode.
Yeah. Took a real turn in the last, 30 minutes or whatever. Didn't expect that from the first bit of the show.
This is what happens when we have to pre-record episodes because we're in Japan.
Whoa. Shut up. Nope. No one's hearing it. The episode's already over.
Now?
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
I don't know why Devon isn't saying goodbye, but bye.
You have to keep that in.